We are now starting round number 1. The Ghosts and Titans. Two teams that are desperately needing points, especially the Ghosts. Yuri, take it out first. Bomb now goes to Curious George. Curious George gave it to Neo. Curious George, back to Neo. Neo, can he track it down? Yes, he does. Curious George is out. You have DT and Neo going at it. Neo, the clear starter for the Ghosts. Going for Tree Droid. Will Tree track it back? Yes, he does at the last millisecond. Tree's up against Fuse. Fuse passes it over to Shaft. Shaft easily tracks back. However, the teammate Quizzle gets in, sandwiches Shaft, and takes Shaft out. Smart play by the Ghosts. No support from the Titans. Quizzle a little far away from DT. Outran shuffled by DT, sending Quizzle back to the lobby. However, the Ghosts still have numbers. DT to Fuse. Fuse unable to track it back, and now we are at a 2-on-2. DT, Zai, DT to Zai. Zai, can he track back? Zai tracks to DT and sacrifices his own teammate instead. You have DT going up against Zyrifs. Zyrifs has a 2-bomb, 1 bomb, and Ghosts will take round number 1. Going into round number 2. The bomb lies with Yuri, who then gave it to Philly. Philly, Neo back to Yuri, and Yuri is sent back to the lobby. He knew what was coming for him. The Ghosts are just so much more coordinated in the first 2 rounds. It's pretty clear that this team is here to win. Curious George back to Neo. You got Quizzo going up against DT. DT, can he track it back? And Quizzo is sent back to the lobby, has no one to give it to. You have Philly and DT. Back to Fuse. Fuse. And Zyrifs now in it. Zyrifs, can he pass it over to Tree Droid? Tree Droid. What was the Ghosts? Poor play on the Ghosts there. One of the players blocked the entryway, allowing Tree Droid to give the bomb to a player and take him out. Sent him back to the lobby. You have DT going up against Philly now. Now we have an abundance of Titans players. How the tables have turned. Philly to DT, and DT easily takes out Philly. We are tied, 1-1. Looks like we might have a potential review, a potential video replay. Not sure what the holdup is for. Oh my goodness, I won a determined item. Yeah, me too, because yesterday's teams were pretty bad. Alright, we are now starting at it. Oh, no way. Avail. Thank you for adding this. Holy crap. Yeah, this was always needed. Alright, you got Curious George going to Neo. Neo to DT. Neo Back to DT. DT, can he pass it to Neo? And Neo's tracked down. Trying to give it to his teammates, but he wasn't able to do it. Philly. Now up against DT. DT tracking him down. You got Fuse in the mix. However, DT confuses the Ghost player, and we are still going strong in round number 3. Quizzo back to Tree Droid. Tree Droid quite a miles away. However, Fuse blocked his path, pushing Tree Droid back, and Yuri flung across the map. Zyrifs manages to give a bomb. Not sure if any null will happen. Zyrifs is taken out. No null on the play. You got Quizzo up against DT. DT easily passes. Oh my goodness! Holy crap! The Ghosts have insane chemistry. Insane chemistry. They are so calculated. Quizzo taking out Yuri. You have Shaft up against Fuse. You got Shaft giving it to Fuse. Fuse sacks his own teammate instead. Shaft up against Fuse. Fuse and Shaft. Shaft has 0 kills so far in this match. Fuse holds too much. Shaft wins despite the incredible, historic chemistry by the Ghosts. They find themselves down 2-1. Zai and Kamsi have been given a warning to put on their jerseys. George tries to give to Philly. He's unable to do so. You got Yuri and Neo. Neo has a bomb. Can he give it back to Yuri? Yuri quite miles away. Yuri tries to track to Zyrus, but however, he's unable to do so. Timing was not on his side. Now Fuse has a bomb going up against Shaft. Shaft has the 3 bomb. Tracks down Fuse. Fuse can he track back? Yes, he does. Takes out Shaft up against the wall. Shaft back to the lobby, kid. Now you have Neo up against Tree Droid. Tree Droid has to pass the bomb back. Tree Droid has the bomb. Can he track Neo? And Neo is out. However, there is an abundance of Ghost players still remaining in round number 4. Tree Droid to Quizzo. Quizzo has to track him back. However, no one's around him. Zyrifs is sacrificed instead. The bomb is now with DT. DT up against Quizzo. DT tracks back Quizzo. Not an issue. Fuse tried to get in to create a sandwich play. However, they simply didn't have the timing. Now it is a 2-on-2. Fuse has timing. DT can he track back? Sacked his own teammate instead. Not good for the Titans. Ghosts can very well tie this up 2-2. Fuse has timing. High 2 DT. And DT's out. Got confused on the play. And we are tied 2-2. Soul, thank you. Thank you for the gifts. I see you. DT up against Neo. Neo. Neo is out. Philly up against Shaft. Shaft back to Philly. Nope, Shaft to Neo, and Neo is gonzo. You got Zyrus up against Curious George. However, Fuse ended up getting the bomb. George has to track back. However, George is unable to track anything back. Zyrus with the bomb. Zyrus up against DT. DT locks it on Zai. Zai, can he... Oh my goodness. Tried to create a sandwich play. However, Fuse ends up getting taken out. Or was that Quizzo? Quizzo's out. Fuse and Zai are only remaining players for the Ghosts. DT takes out Fuse. And now it is a 4 versus 1 for Zyrifs. Zai up against DT. Has a 2 bomb. DT has timing. Titans evenly spaced out, taking a 3-2 lead. Leg warning 1 for DT. 2 leg warnings will result in a penalty against the offending team. Going into the next round. Neil up against Trees. Trees, can he pass back to Neil? No! The ghost player is out. You got Quizzle up against Philly. However, Philly ends up running off and locks it on Tree Droid. Tree has a 3-bomb, selects a new player, goes up against Campsy, and Campsy is taken out. Tree Droid up against Quizzo. Quizzo to Tree Droid. Tree Droid to Curious George, who tried to give it to Quizzo, but was unsuccessful in doing so. You got Shaft and Philly. Shaft, Philly. Philly isolated against the wall. However, tried to give it to Quizzo, who would have given it to Shaft. However, Shaft outruns and outmaneuvers the ghosts. Philly up against Tree. Tree Droid has to track it to Philly, and Philly is out of this round. Now you have Yuri up against Fuse. Fuse up against Yuri. Yuri gave it to Fuse. However, Fuse backs off Yuri and gave it to DT. However, DT was simply too good. The score is 4-2. DT up against Philly. Philly to DT. No, Philly holds, overholds a DT. Oh my goodness, sacrificed his own teammate. Smart play by Philly. However, the Titans were coordinated. It seems like that the Titans do want to keep DT alive as much as possible, even if that means sacrificing his own teammates. However, DT did go down on that play, and now it is up to Yuri to take out Neo. However, Neo doesn't want anything to do with Yuri and gives it to George. George is now out. Neo finally opting to go for Yuri. Neo up against Yuri. Yuri has a timing advantage, and Neo is sent back to the lobby. Tried to give it to Campsy, however, they simply didn't have the timing. Yuri back to Campsy. And Campsy, does he have timing? Will the chain? No, they cannot chain it. Philly up against Yuri now. Philly has timing, tracks Yuri, unable to track back. Shaft up against Fuse. Shaft back to Fuse. Fuse has a 2-bomb, 1-bomb, last minute track, no, unable to do so. I know Philly wanted to come in for a play, for a chain play. However, they just need to time themselves more effectively. Zyrus up against Shaft, and Shaft is finally eliminated. Took the Ghosts a little longer than they wanted. However, they got the job done. The score is 4-3 in favor of the Titans. And it seems like play has been paused. Will we see another leg warning, or could we potentially see a penalty being handed down against one of these teams? No penalty on the play. No warnings on the play. We jump into round number 8. You got Fuse up against Curious George, but now it's DT up against Neo. We've seen this matchup a little too often. Neo didn't want to go back home yet. Sacrificed his own teammate. DT up against Neo for round number 2. DT to Neo. Neo doesn't have time again. Neo finally wins the DT versus Neo Mega Series. You got Neo up against Zyrif's Tree Droid. Tree Droid has a bomb, however, saw Zyrif's through and took him out instead. Failed play by the Ghosts. Philly up against George. George and Philly. George has timing on Philly, sacrifices Neo instead. Said, Neo, you were alive too long. You should have been back in the lobby a long time ago. Now it's time to go back home. Curious George up against Philly. Philly to Curious George, who then sacrifices his own teammate. Philly up against George. George has timing. Yuri now in the play. The switcheroo. Yuri has no timing on Philly and is sent back to the lobby. Maybe Curious George should have stayed on Philly instead of passing it off to Yuri. Fuse, though, doesn't have much timing on George and is sent back to the lobby. Now it is Philly up against Shaft. Philly, strong player for the team, has 8 KOs up against a 4 KO Shaft, has timing, and George tried getting in for the sandwich play, however it didn't work out. Philly saw it through and positioned himself perfectly to get himself into this 1v1 up against George, and it is now tied. Philly, masterclass play, masterclass series by the Ghosts. Philly single-handedly carrying his team to making sure that they are competitive in this match. Philly, call him the cook because he's cooking fish fillet. Now you got Neo up against DT. However, Curious George got in the mix and got sent back to the lobby. Now you got Neo up against Yuri. Neo isn't a big fan of Yuri. Kamsi for the wall play, and it is successful. What a 5-star play by the Ghosts. Holy crap. Passing it right through the wall. Kamsi taking out the Sharks, so taking out the Titans player. Masterclass! Tree Droid is finally sent back to the lobby. Now you got Shaft up against Neo. Neo, strong player, has 10 KOs so far. Neo up against Shaft, has timing. Tried to give it to Kamsi. However, Kamsi knew what was coming for him and made sure that he was as far away as possible. Now you got DT up against Cool Philly. Philly the cook. Philly the chef. However, passed it off to Neo, and Neo was taken out. He wasn't able to finish. Now you got DT up against Philly. Philly, can he pass back to DT? No, gave it to Kamsi, who should have then swirled back. However, Kamsi didn't read the play correctly. Now it is DT up against Philly. Maybe Philly will finish the job himself, and yes he does. DT is finally out. You got Philly, Fish Fillet Philly, cooking so far, carrying his team to these dubs. Insane by Philly. 5-star performance so far. We now go into round number 10. The score is close. 5-4. Ghosts finally take back the lead. You got Yuri going up against Philly. However, had to sacrifice his own teammate instead in an attempt to get Kamsi. You got George up against Neo. Philly, Fuse to Yuri, and Yuri is sent back to the lobby. The Titans going on a downward slope. They were doing so well. However, the Ghosts just locked in. Kamsi up against Shaft. Shaft has timing, and Shaft takes out Kamsi. Not an issue at all for Shaft. Shaft up against Neo now. Neo wants his revenge. Neo wants blood on his hands. Can Neo track to Shaft? No, Neo wins! Neo won the matchup up against Shaft. You got Neo up against George. George, weak player. However, this time he flocks in strength, taking out the one and the great Neo. Now you got Philly. Fish Fillet Philly. Philly the cook. Philly, can he cook? No, he doesn't. However, he's still alive. Sacrificed his own teammate because he wants a second chance to prove why he is the best player in this match. Neo cooks up Curious George. Sends him to the barbecue grill. Now you got DT up against Zyrifs. Zyrifs up against DT. Philly stays back. No, he doesn't. DT got him away. Philly got cooked by DT. Now you got Zyrifs. He's a little far away. Shuffles, and he's too far away. DT wins it. We are tied 5-5, ladies and gentlemen. What a match this has been so far. Zora has now joined the match. Neo up against Shaft. Going to try and use Kamsi as a screen. Shaft unable to track to Shamsi. Smart hold by Neo. Philly to Zora, and Zora is out. Now you have Neo going up against, I don't know who. Neo, Yuri up against Philly. Will Philly get cooked? No, he doesn't. Kamsi gets cooked instead. Fish Fillet Philly. Philly, can he pass to Yuri? Yes, he does. Yuri has the timing, though. Yuri will track back, and Fish Fillet is cooked. Yuri up against Neo. And Zyrus is taken out of that scruffle. Yuri should have been the one that went back to the lobby. However, that wasn't the case. Fuse needs to lock in a bit. However, Fuse just got shuffled, got ankled, got twirled, got swindled, got carouseled by Tree Droid. Now you have Yuri up against Neo. Neo has a bomb, and Neo is out. Titans take back the lead. They are not happy. They are angry. They want this set to be over with. Vampy, thank you so much for the hand hearts. Oh my goodness. That's actually worth a lot. Mad shout out to Vampy. Thank you so much. Excessive stomping by ghosts. Vampy. W to Vampy. A penalty has been issued to the ghosts. Apparently there was misconduct on the ghosts' end. Looks like Campsy will sit around. George reset to make sure that they didn't receive any penalty. You got Fuse up against DT. Fuse to DT, which took out Zyrifs. You got DT up against Philly. Philly to DT. Philly has the bomb back. Philly Philly didn't know what happened. He was just flabbergasted. Neo up against DT. DT to Neo. Neo to DT. DT back to Neo. And DT's out. DT back to the lobby. Neo up against Yuri. Yuri back to Neo. Can he track it? And yes, Neo does track it down. Titans looking to secure a further lead. Fuse is the only player remaining right now for the Titans, and he's tracked despite the abundance of Titans players around Fuse. 7-5 is the score for the Titans. You got Yuri up against Neo. Neo to Yuri. Yuri takes himself out. Not a great play. Now you have Neo up against Zora. Zora has a bomb. Zora, can he pass it over to Neo? Can he track it down? No! Zora is out! Now you have Neo. Neo has a bomb. Goes center court. Tree Droid. Now the mix. Going up against Neo. Tree Droid up against the wall. And Neo is sent back to the lobby. You have Shaft going up against Philly. Philly has a bomb. 3 bomb. Shaft, can he track it back? And Shaft is taken out. Sent back to the lobby. Now you have Fuse going up against Tree Droid. Fuse now back to Tree. Tree has timing. Can he sack his own teammate? They tried to go for the sandwich attempt. However, Fuse was ultimately the one who got sent back to the lobby. Now you have Tree up against Philly. Philly to Tree, and Tree cooks Philly. Sorry, Tree. Yeah, no, Philly cooks Tree Droid. Tree Droid sent back to the lobby. Now you have Philly. Philly to DT. DT is taken out, and Ghosts, despite the penalty, despite being down short-handed, come back within 1. They have a chance to tie it up. The score is 6-7. 6-7. Let's go. 6-7. Hype it up in the chat, fellas. Now we are in round number 14. Yuri up against Shaft. Shaft now giving it to Yuri. Neo to Yuri. Yuri, can he track back? No, Neo overholds. Can he track? No! What an overhold by. What an overhold by Neo. Overhold by Neo, which took him back to the lobby. The next player out is Zora. Now you have DT up against Shaft, up against Yuri. Yuri to Zai. Zai has timing. Yuri now has timing. Zai with the high too. Yuri needs to track it back desperately. However, he is unable to flick in time. Oh my goodness, this round is stacked. Philly, can he cook? Will he cook for wood? Will the wood get cooked? Oh my goodness, Philly cooked trees. He took the bark out of the tree and sent it back to the lobby. Killed the trees, killed the oxygen. Now you have DT up against Philly, and Philly is cooked next by the Titans player. Now you have Fuse up against DT. DT has timing. Now Fuse has timing. DT with the high bomb. And now DT is sent back to the lobby. Now the Ghosts are looking to desperately tie this up. Now you have Shaft going up against Fuse. Fuse has timing, and the Ghosts have tied it up once again. What a back and forth this game has been so far. You got Shaft up against Kamsi. Shaft, Kamsi. And Kamsi takes out Zora instead. Poor timing. Shaft is the next player going back to the lobby. Now you have Neo with the bomb. Neo needs to give it to Yuri. Yuri gave the bomb over, and Yuri gives it back to Neo. Neo back to the lobby. Yeah, Philly up against Yuri. Philly to Yuri. Yuri has timing. Philly has the timing. He's gonna cook Yuri. Cooks Yuri against the wall. Now you got Philly up against True Droid. True Droid, strong player. However, in the previous round, he was cooked by Philly. Will Philly cook again, or will Tree Droid get his revenge? No! Tree Droid is owned by Philly! Call Philly the owner of the tree! DT up against Philly. DT to Philly. DT has timing. However, DT didn't want to take out Philly. Sorry, Philly didn't want to take himself out. Sacrificed his own teammate at Kamsi instead. Zyrus now has a bomb up against DT. DT has timing though, and sacrificed Fuse instead. DT single-handedly carrying his team in round number 15. Zyrus to DT. DT, can he track it back? Yes, he does. It is now a one-on-one. Will DT single-handedly complete for 4v1? Oh my goodness, DT is popping off. However, he must go up against the boss man who has 25 KOs, and Philly sends his team 1 point ahead. Heart me. Thank you so much, Jay, for heart me. You're now part of the fan club. You got Neo up against Yuri. Yuri, can he track back? Neo needs to track back to Philly, and yes, he does. Gets him at the last second. Now you have Zyrus up against DT. DT needs to make some magic happen. DT ankles, confuses the ghosts. Now you have Zyrus with the bomb. Oh my goodness, what's happening? Curious George needs to pass it to Kamsi, and Kamsi is now taken out. Oh my goodness, Vampy. Thank you so much for my hand hearts. W Vampy in the chat. DT to Zyrus, and DT is taken out. Fuse needs to give to Tree Droid. However, Fuse got caught up against the wall, wanted to sacrifice his own teammate. However, he saw that his teammate was Philly and was like, nah, bro, you're way better than me. I'll just take the L. I'm going back to the lobby, buddy. Curious George had no idea what he was doing, got lost on the play, and now it is a 2-on-2. The score is getting close, and time is running out. Zyrus up against Tree. Tree needs to track it to Zion. Yes, he does. Philly needs to start cooking, or else the Titans will tie this game right back up again. Philly up against Shaft. Shaft to Philly, and Philly is cooked. The game is tied. 8-8. 8-8-8-8-8. Oh my goodness. Will we potentially see overtime? Who knows? Got Philly up against DT, and DT is sent back out. Kamsi needs to track it. Tries to get a chain play going. However, the ghosts were uncoordinated. The chemistry is slowly starting to wear off. They aren't as locked in as they were in the first half of this set. Yuri takes out Neo. Smart play by the Titans. Yuri up against Fuse. Fuse in the middle. Fuse in the middle. Yuri up against Fuse. Yuri, can he track down to Fuse? No! Yuri is out! Yeah, Philly with the bomb. Philly up against Tree Droid. Tree Droid gave up. Simply gave up. However, this is a close round. There is no room to give up. There is no margin in this set. Fuse didn't get tracked down by Shaft, and Shaft is probably pissed. He's angry that he wasn't able to get that. Now you have Zyrus. Far, far away. Now it is Curious George up against the Ghosts who want to take back the lead. George with only 6 KOs up against powerhouses. You have a 7 KO. Curious George up against the 28 KO Cool Philly. It is a 5-1 chance that Philly cooks up. Oh my goodness! What a play! George saved his team. It is now 9-8. Ghosts are mad. They need to tie this up. They need to win round number 18 desperately. You have Neo up against Tree Droid. Neo to Tree. Neo, Tree. Can Tree track back Neo? No! Unsuccessful in doing so. That is dire for the Titans. The Titans need as much players as they can get alive. Campsy, can he track down DT? No, he's unable to do so. So now we are evened out. 4 versus 4. 8 players remain in round number 18. 18 up against 8. Now you have Neo taking out Yuri. Yuri is sent back to the lobby. Not good for the Titans. Now you have Neo up against DT. Can DT track it back? And Philly ends up trying to save Neo. However, Neo is sent back to the lobby. Now you have DT up against Philly. DT, strong player. DT has timing. However, he can't track down Philly. You have Zarifs up against Curious George. Can he track it down? No, he can't. You have Fuse up against Curious George. George to Fuse. George is taken out. Chef, the only remaining player for the Titans. Can he make magic happen? Philly got confused. Unable to track him down to Chef. Oh my goodness. What is happening? Chef up against Philly. Oh my goodness, this is a must win for Philly. Philly needs to track down Chef, and yes he does. We are tied 9-9. What a set this has been. Going into round number 19. You got DT up against Zarifs. DT tracks down Zai. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. You have Yuri up against Fuse. Fuse needs to track it down. However, Fuse gets tracked and he's out. He is sent back to the lobby. This is not the time to go down. We are so close to going to overtime. Fuse to Philly, and Philly is out. Strong player for the Ghosts is finally out. Now you got Neo. Neo is out. Neo up against George. George unable to track down. No, sorry, George tracked down Campsy, and Campsy was sent back to the lobby. Now you have Yuri. Yuri needs to give it to Neo. However, Yuri is far, far away. The numbers are in favor of the Titans. Neo needs to carry his team. Curious George. George, can he track back to Neo? No, he can't. Now it is a 2-on-1 in favor of the Titans. DT, strong player. I know he can make some magic happen. However, Neo has timing. Oh my goodness. Will Neo single-handedly 3v1 for the Ghosts? Will he take out the Titans? DT's a strong player, and Neo's far away. We're at game point, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Sebi, for the heart, for the finger heart. Game point. A must-win round for the Ghosts. If the Ghosts do not win, of course I thank you. I'm focused on my match, buddy. Campsy taken out. Not good for the Ghosts in a must-win round. You have Neo. Neo is taken out. This is really bad for the Ghosts, guys. This is really bad for the Ghosts. It's a must-win round. It's a must-win round. Shaft is taken out. Sacrifices Tree Droid. 4-on-3 for the Ghosts. Actually, in favor of the Titans. Philly up against Yuri. And Yuri can't track down Philly. Zyrus is the next player taken out. Philly and Fuse, arguably the strongest players for their team, are still alive, and now it is a 2-on-2. Will the Ghosts tie it up? Or will the Titans secure victory? Philly has timing. Chef has to track it back, and yes, it does! Oh my goodness, it is now up to Fuse with 21 KOs up against a stronger Shaft. Oh my goodness, Well, Fuse needs to track it down. Oh, he got shuffled and ankled by Chef. And that is the game. That is the round. That is the set. What a set. What a set. Ladies and gentlemen.
Fuck,
That's
yo.
fine.
That was close. That was really close, though.
Ghosts.
Oh, it is fine.
Ghosts.
Yo.
Tough loss.
Hey, fine.
Tough loss. What will you guys do to ensure victory in set number 2? And will you guys
West?
use?
You get a better server for us?
Do you guys?
Oh,
think,
we're getting a better server.
do you guys
We're
think?
playing West.
Do you guys think you guys can secure 2 points?
100%.
100% with the set
Maybe.
margin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we had a really good
Easily,
set.
easily, bro.
Yeah,
Alright.
dude, full N18 versus full EU on EU, and we still did good, so I don't
Alright.
really care.
Good luck.
Thank-
All right, Titans. Very tough. Very tough and very close set. We're gonna be switching to. We're going to be switching to NA server. Do you guys think you can secure 2 points, or maybe even 3
Hey,
points?
nah, we still got it. We still got it. We still have it. It's in the bag.
Yeah, we had a slow start. Like, you know, I don't know. I feel like we're just a bit shaky off the back, but we got like heads in the game in certain rounds. So if we keep that up, we're gonna.
All right, good luck. And who's the player that you guys need to focus on the most?
Probably Spy 388. He's a pretty good player.
I appreciate. I know he's a goat.
I was
He's a really
joking,
good
by the way.
player.
Probably Neo. He's pretty good, and now it's gonna be his server. So.
Oh. All right.
yeah.
Well, good luck.
You too, Spy.
Neo
You
is
too. Good luck.
Garbage, bro.
Both teams very confident that they will win. We're on Seattle servers, ladies and gentlemen. This is not good for the Ghosts. I mean, for the Titans. I'm not sure what we're waiting on. However, we should probably reset the scoreboard. A timeout has been called. Ladies and gentlemen, a timeout has been called. CK, thank you for the follow. Thank you for the follow, everyone. Thank you for the gifts. It is much appreciated. Sebi, thank you so much. Soul, number 1. Finn, thank you so much for the heart me. And Soul, thank you so much for the 10 roses. See, this is a time where I could actually check out the chat. Because we actually have like a timeout going on right now. Welcome everyone. Set 2 is about to start. The timeout is now over. We are starting a first round in set number 2. Ghosts looking to make a comeback and looking to win big. The best players, Orc, is Real Gamer and Bob Blown. Those are the 2 top players. Yuri up against Neo. Neo is taken out, sent back to the lobby. You got Zyref's up against Yuri. Zyref's taken out, sent back to the lobby. You got Yuri up against Campsy. 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 To Campsy back to the lobby. Blue Clouds. Ryan no longer in the match, in the game. Now you got Zora up against Fuse, tracking him down flawlessly. Titans still have numbers going in favor for them. Philly to Yuri. Yuri takes out Philly. Yuri, Fuse. Yuri is out. Thank you for the support. Exclamation march. Y. W narrator. Thank you. Fuse taken out. Now it is a one-on-one. Shaft up against Fuse. Shaft to Fuse. Fuse has a bomb. Fuse, can he track it down? No, he can't. Fuse wins. Titans win round number 1. The first round has been nulled. The referee has nullified round number 1. The round will be replayed. Alright, chat. I want to know what angle. Do you like angle number 1 better? Where you have to free cam view? Fuse gets taken out? And then, or do you like it when we actually spectate the players? So which one do you like better? The free cam angle or the spectate angle? Okay, so the angle we're on right now. Thanks for the input. Yeah, maybe we'll do the free cam when it's like a one-on-one. That's a good idea. Zora is taken out. Campsy up against Blue Clouds. Blue Clouds needs to track back to Campsy. Campsy tracks down to Blue. And Ryan is out. You got Campsy up against Shaft. Shaft to Campsy and oh man, Shaft is out. Ghosts dominating. True Droid to Campsy. True Droid, the last player. And True Droid is out. Ghosts will take round number 1. Yuri to Philly. Philly needs to track, unable to do so. Got Zora. Zora needs to make some magic happen. However, Zora is sent out. Neo. Neo is gone next. Yuri to Campsy. Campsy unable to track back to Yuri. Titans have numbers in favor for them. Server leg is now taking effect. Fuse. Fuse needs to track back to Ryan and successfully does so. However, True Droid is sacrificed instead. They got Zyrus up because Yuri and Zai is taken out. Titans desperately looking to tie back up again. Fuse holds. Fuse can track back, and Fuse is taken out. Titans win round number 2. Neo unable to track back to Ryan. Campsy's out next. Ryan to Philly. Philly is out. Zyrus, Gonzo. And Ryan is gone. Hello? Shit. Oh, it's okay, my rights here. Okay. Oh no, this is good. I wanted to call. Sure. Okay, go home. Of course my mic didn't mute. Alright. So I don't even know who just won, who won round number 1. Alright. I'm back to commentating. Sorry, I just needed some, I just needed a little sip of water. Let's just say that. Shaft is out. And Ghosts. Ghosts tied back up again. We are tied 2-2. Campsy. A penalty has been awarded to Campsy. There's some beef going on. The ghosts are angry. Shaft issued a leg warning. Listen, man, I don't got time to be. Listen, my days of reffing are over. Okay, I don't care. If the ghosts have an issue, they can bring it up after the match. Because that's when my job actually starts. After the match. Zyrifs to Yuri. And Zai's out. Penalty for the ghosts. Quizzo to Yuri. Treedroid is sacrificed instead. Damien, I don't know if I think I thanked you, but thank you for the rose. We got Quizzo. Up against Blue Clouds. Blue needs to track to Quizzo. He doesn't. Yeah, Fuse up against George. George takes out Quizzo instead. Can't imagine Quizzo being happy about that. Tensions are high and tensions are flaring in the Ghosts organization. Yeah, Fury up against Neo. Neo outruns, and now it is Curious George up against Fuse. So despite the penalty that the Ghosts are on right now, they are still successful. George is tracked, and Ghosts will take the round, ultimately taking back the lead. Quizzo cortisol is spiking. Yes, it is. People, this game, Time Bomb can make you mad. It really does piss off people. This game is serious. More serious than the Super Bowl. Penalty up against Shaft, who legged once. I guess he legged again. Shaft is being sat. Shaft, I can't imagine Shaft being happy about the leg warnings he's been given. We might be going on a 4-on-4. Yes, we are. 4-on-4 for round number 6. Actually, yeah. You got Yuri up against Zai. Curious George. Gone. Yeah, Yuri going up against an abundance of Ghost players. However, I think it's just given up. Ghosts easily take. Round number 6. Quick round. Utter domination by the Ghosts. Titans won the first set. Exo, how's it going, man? Long time. Alright, back to Yuri up against Neo. Neo to Blue Clouds, and Quizzo's out. You got Yuri up against Campsy, and Campsy outruns the Titans player. You got Blue Clouds up against Zai through the wall, and Zai is out. Yeah, I got Campsy up against Ryan. Ryan back to Cam. Cam is taken out. The sandwich play came into full force, and Titans are currently leading in numbers. However, that's no longer the case. It is now a 2-on-2. Oops. Excuse me. Ryan up against Fuse. Fuse to Ryan, and Ryan is out. Man, I gotta use these donations to get myself Chipotle today. I'm hungry. You got Curious George. It was a 3-on-2. However, the Ghosts just dominated. Score is now 5-2. The game was stopped. I wonder why. Oh, we're back in. We're back in. Quizzo to George. Quizzo gave it to Zyrus, who would have wanted to give it to George, but they were unsuccessful in doing so. Gamsey up against Yuri. Yuri can't track back to anyone, and he is Gonzo. DT to Quizzo. And Quizzo's out. Ryan tracks down the Ghosts. Now DT has the bomb up against Cam. Cam to DT. DT shuffles. However, he gets a bomb back, and DT's just out of this game. He's out of the round. Now you got Cam up against Ryan. Ryan can't track back. Not looking good for the Titans. They are losing set margin right now. And Ghosts win again. 6-2 is the score. Yeah, Shaft up against Neo. Yuri is taken out. Ghosts in utter domination again, and Shaft is going to take another leg warning. Not sure how much he has, but Shaft is definitely out of it. Soul, 40 GGs, and Damien Damien and Soul, I literally just saw this. Thank you so much to both of you. W Damien and W Soul. Thank you so much. 42 roses, 40 GGs. The score is 7-2 for the Ghosts. Yuri wasn't tracked down. Stomping the toxicity. Curious George up against Zyrifs. And Curious George is taken out. Quizzo to Yuri. Tree, and Yuri is out. DT to Quizzo, and Quizzo is out. Phased through. Now you got Neo. They all up against DT. DT tracks the bomb back. Neo to DT, and DT through the wall, and DT is Gonzo. And Tree Droid. Tree is out, and Ghosts win again. Utter domination. 8-2. Neo with the bomb up against Curious George. Curious George tracks it back to Neo. Neo up against Curious George, and George is out of here. Next up, the bomb goes to Zyrifs. Now Neo has a bomb. Neo up against Ryan. Ryan needs to track back. Can Ryan track it back? No, he's unable to do so. Got lost of the scrum and is now back in the lobby. Now you got Neo up against Yuri. Yuri, can he track it back to Neo? Yes, he does. 4 bomb, 3 bomb, 2 bomb, tick-tock, tick-tock, and Neo is sacked by his own teammate, Quizzo. Fuse to Shaft. Shaft back to Fuse. Nope. Back to Campsy. And Campsy couldn't track it back to Shaft. Now you got Yuri up against Quizzo. Shaft. Quizzo. Shaft. Can he track it to Quizzo? Unable to do so. Now Yuri to Quizzo. Hey, Quizzo is gone. He's out of here. They got Zyrus and DT. DT, can he track it back? DT's gone. The Ghosts dominating once again, looking to make it 9-2. Fuse, can he track on Neo? Yuri, and Yuri's tracked at the last millisecond. Very precise timing. The score is 9-2. Can the Titans fight back? Can they pop off? Shaft has 4 leg warnings and has been ejected from the set. He can no longer play in the set. Campsy is out. Shaft ejected. Quizzo takes on the Titans. Hope is looking dire for the Titans. It's looking grim. However, the Titans do have 1 point at least secured on the week. The standings are very tight. And it's going to be exciting to see what happens in week 5. Oh no, the minigame was stopped. This player right here was just ejected. Move. Was just ejected for lagging too much. Shaft, not in a good position. He was lagging too much and he was ejected from the set. Philly, a top player, has been cooking for his team. You can buy the Philly jersey for 5 Robux. Be sure to hit up the team store right after. Alright, we're now moving into round number 12. Hopefully for real this time. Campsy to Tree, and Tree Droid is out. Ryan tracks it to Neil flawlessly. Great play by Ryan. Ryan, can he track to Zai? No, he's unable to do so. Tried to give it through the wall, however, it didn't work. Camps to DT. DT's out. You got Yuri. Yuri in the middle of nowhere, and he is gone. The ghosts are not at game point. I think the Titans just want this match to be over with. Alright, Soul, I'm gonna add you as a moderator. Campsy is also ejected from the set. Not good for the ghosts. Well, actually, no, never mind. It doesn't even matter. The ghosts are about to win anyways. Two ejections in one set. Ryan to Fuse. You got Ryan to Zai. Zai to Ryan, and Ryan is out. DT to Neo, and DT is out. Zai to Yuri. Yuri, can he track it? Yes, he does. Stomping by Zai. I think that was on his own teammate, though. Yuri is out, and that is the set. That is the game. 2 points for the Ghosts. 1 point for the Titans. 11-2 in set number 2. Good game, and thank you for watching.